One panel today that really caught our eye, simply called What Makes Life Good? Here's a short clip from that panel.
Number one, I answer to God, and I will happily say that. And I think anyone who has a big problem with that, I would say with all due respect, like it's how do we define God? Because if God is the mystery and beauty and miracle of nature and the divine creative cosmic impulse of just being alive, so be it.
That panelist, a face you might recognize from one of the most iconic shows on television. Well, maybe not if you're watching The Office on a long flight, as this viral video from earlier this year shows. Joining me now is the masked man in that viral video, Rainn Wilson, known for his role as Dwight from The Office, but also the author of a new book on his own journey, finding spirituality and his belief in a higher power. It's called Soul Boom, Why We Need a Spiritual Revolution. And we also have Miroslav Volf, the founding director of the Yale Center for Faith and Culture and a professor of theology. Thank you to both for being here. And the topic was so heavy. It was a beautiful conversation. Rainn, I want to start with you. People are going to hear that clip and they might say, wow, that's pretty deep. And I always think it's courageous when people talk about their faith, whatever their faith may be or their lack of it. Why do you want people to know where you are in your life?
Well, that's an excellent question, and it's the first question I pose in my book, which is, why the hell is the guy who played Dwight talking about spirituality? Because it seems like a very strange disconnect, right? But I do it for a number of reasons. One is it's really important to me. It's part of who I am. It's part of my authentic voice. Spirituality has helped me on my mental health journey. But I also feel like culturally, we're not engaging in deep enough, relevant enough conversations about how we can use spiritual tools to transform ourselves and make our lives better, but also help transform society.
Talk to me about Sky Father, Sky Daddy.
Sky Daddy.
And it's just sort of vision, or maybe wrong vision of what people have of God.
Well, so in Soul Boom, I have a chapter on God called The Notorious G.O.D., which was actually the name of a TV show I pitched all around Hollywood. I wanted to do a documentary about kind of redefining God and reimagining God in the modern world. And it got passed on everywhere, of course. In fact, Netflix told me it was too controversial. So there you have it.
There's that.
But so in that chapter, I'm trying to get people away from thinking about God as Sky Daddy, because that's so seeped into our cultural consciousness of this patriarchal, judgmental, bearded man with with shooting miracles down from a cloud, and just really detaching ourselves from that kind of concept of what the divine can be.
Professor, you wrote a book, also great reviews, called Life Worth Living. It's based on a seminar you've taught at Yale. Kids pay a lot of money to go to Yale. People are paying a lot of money to come here to the Aspen Ideas Festival. So you're going to give us the answer and our viewers for free. What makes life good?
I think like what makes life good is a kind of deep sense of purpose and a deep sense of attunement with what the reality is around us. And I very much agree. I myself am I'm Christian. I believe in God, not notorious G.O.D., not in the Sky Daddy. And for most of the tradition, this wasn't an image actually of God. It is this, one of the church fathers called it God is love. And therefore, the one who loves love loves God. And for me, that has become a key to understanding who we are and what are we supposed to do with our lives.
You posed a good question, and it's an exercise people should take if they want to try this out. It is, who are you responsible to? So my question to you is, I have friends, I have family that don't believe in God, right? Maybe they're atheists, maybe they're agnostic. But can you still live a good life, in your opinion, and not believe in a God?
Yes, I think you can. I think I would agree, I would argue that you live it in the power of God, even though you don't believe in God. And people find various places which kind of call them to the life of meaning. I mean, I myself do. It's not simply that I think about God. I think about ordinary people in my life. For instance, I have a 5-year-old daughter. I'm responsible for her, but I'm answerable to her as well. I want her to grow and to know that somebody who has taken care of her was the person with integrity that led her on the right kind of a path. I want her to be proud of me as a father. Yeah. And in that sense, I am responsible to her as well as for her. The same can be said of our traditions to which we belong, of our network of friends to which we belong. So people can be good people, and we have plenty examples of it, who do not believe, but who nonetheless kind of benefit from the actuality of God in the world and in their lives.
Is at the core of your argument is just not to be selfish? Is that part of it?
I think a core of the argument, you can put it this way, to get out of yourself and into something that is larger than yourself. Core of the argument is there are certain kinds of connections that are based on my appreciation of the character of your existence and honoring no matter who you are. I may not agree with what you do. I may not agree with what you say, but I need to honor and respect you as a person and see in you, in a sense, I would put it in my terms, see in you an image of the divine and therefore worthy of respect. And that, to me, shifts the character of the question from what do I want, or what do I really want, even, to what is truly worth wanting.
Yeah.
And that's the question that I think we need to ask ourselves. I need to ask, what is worth wanting?
Rainn, is life good for you? And if it is, talk to me about why you're sharing your journey with spirituality and how it helped you with your mental health issues.
Life is great for me now, but I've had a lot of struggles in a lot of different phases in my life. And back in the 90s, when I was really struggling with anxiety and depression,
This was before your fame? Before?
Oh, yeah, well before. This is when I couldn't even get an audition for Law & Order.
And everyone gets an audition.
And everyone gets an audition for Law & Order. I was a struggling theater actor in New York, and it was a great life. I was a professional actor, but I was miserable. I was unhappy and tormented. So I went on kind of a spiritual journey where I explored these ideas that Miroslav is so beautifully articulating about finding kind of meaning and vision and purpose. And it's helped me tremendously. Was it an easy fix? Did it happen instantaneously? Not at all. It's been a long, multi-decade journey, but I find it incredibly fulfilling.
Were you skeptical at all, or worried that talking about your faith, talking about your spirituality was going to affect your professional career?
Absolutely, yeah. Actors don't talk about God. They don't talk about soul or religion or spirituality, or they often get really ostracized. And I'm in a very privileged position because I've had an amazing run and with The Office, and I still get to do really cool roles, and I'm excited to continue in my career. But this isn't a conversation I necessarily would have had at age 33 and just kind of starting my career. But I also feel like, and this is bottom line, like this stuff is important. It's not just like a hobby. It's not like a side conversation. Like spiritual tools we need. We're in the midst of the biggest mental health crisis in human history. That's killing young people. We're at the verge of a crisis, of a political crisis that's tearing our country apart. And there are spiritual solutions. There are spiritual tools that we can learn from all of the great faith traditions of the world. We need them. It's vital. It's important.
Professor, before we go, and I want to wrap it up here because I think it's important to say this, you say one of the keys to living a good life is forgiveness. Can you explain?
Yes, we go through life. I don't know, maybe you or some of the audience do not, but most of us do. And often we do things of which we are actually ashamed, deeply ashamed. And we sometimes want, as in some of the discussions with kids, take this word back, and you can't take it back. Time does not go backwards, and you are stuck with that deed. Right. How does one free oneself from that burden of shame and of guilt that sits on one? And I think to be free, actually, one needs to have this sense that I am not identical and I'm not defined by that deed. I can be freed for it. And that's what forgiveness does. I don't count the deed that you did against me, against you.
Yeah.
We can build a bridge between you and me, and we can return back. And to me, almost, it's like a little new birth that happens when forgiveness is given, when that guilt and shame that has been glued to us gets unglued, and then I am suddenly a different person.
Can I take the Yale online course? Is that available? Can I take the? Is there a free online course?
The entire course is available.
I know,
in the
it's
book.
right here.
The book gives you the entire course, right? Essentially, it saves you like $85,000.
Probably even more. He's not going to say it. Professor Volf, Rainn Wilson, thank you guys so much. Thanks for opening up and talking with us and sharing with our viewers. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.